why don't you go ahead and take your pointer,
Okay,
and I'll let mine sit idle at the moment,
got it.
and take us through the first pass on the text.
Okay, mine is the one that's had too much caffeine on your screen right now. It's shaking like crazy. Okay, so here we go. Va'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with a brand new show with a not so much of a brand new dude, but we all love him to death because he's a great Hebrew teacher, scholar, great friend, and full of lots and lots of wisdom. I love this man more than you guys would ever know. This is welcoming back Gavriel R.A. Sanders. We are on a new adventure, Baruch Hashem. And so this new show format, you've already seen it, learn Hebrew from the weekly Parsha. I was thinking about this because this is how I learned how to read Hebrew, self-taught, and I used this method, and for me it worked out great. I'm hoping it works out great for you guys too. So each week, Gavriel and I will go over the Parsha, the upcoming Parsha for you guys so you can get your meal before it gets cold. And we will go over the first handful of verses. That could be 2 verses. It could be 10, depending on how fast things flow, how complicated it is. And Gavriel is going to use those. We're going to focus on those words for like 90% of what's going on is to be all Hebrew. So you're going to get a lot of really, really good meat. But then at the very end of each show, a little bit of dessert for you guys. I've asked Gavriel if he would be willing to but to let us partake in some of the wisdom of his Torah learning over the years. Him and I have talked on so many different intimately private occasions to where we just talking back and forth, and I'm like, man, this would be great show content. And so he's agreed to do that. So we'll do the Hebrew class, and then right at the tail end, the last 5 to 10 minutes, whatever we got left there, and we'll switch that over to a little old Torah lesson for each of you here today. So, Gavriel, welcome back, my brother.
Well, thank you very much, and just don't feel any pressure whatsoever after that wonderful, overwhelming build-up. So thank you very, very much. Hey, do you think we should tell them?
Let's tell them.
This is the 3rd time that we're attempting to do this.
But it was my fault though, because last time we did a great job. It
was a good show.
Yeah, there's a simple little trigger in one of the settings that allows for a second screen to record audio. Problem is, it doesn't record the audio like exactly on the second. It records it like this, and it creates a really annoying echo throughout the entire show. So that was my bad. Gavriel, you're a very patient man. You're a very patient man to be willing to do this for me twice. 3 times, excuse me.
Thrice. Yes.
3rd time's a charm.
Yes,
so.
I'm patient.
Yeah, sure. But you know, it's good that you're patient because I have this saying that those people who are not patient will eventually become one. I believe that's very true. So
well, that's very good.
Thank you.
Good. I thought it might be something that maybe Rabbi Singer would say, like, "Well, I can't be a doctor because I have no patience." So, okay, so
I like that too.
It's right. It's right up there with yes. It is nice to meet me, isn't it? So.
You do have Rabbi Singer's sense of humor, by the way.
I tried that today with somebody. I happened to meet somebody I was at the Waldorf. I know it sounds really cool to drop that name. Hi, I was at the Waldorf in Jerusalem today.
That's funny.
By the way, somebody who's really big in New York, very well known, said, if you go to Jerusalem and stay in the Waldorf, you should just stay in New York. So
interesting.
There's no jet lag. It's a beautiful place. It's a nice
funny.
place for meetings in the courtyard there. It's just beautiful atrium. So if you happen to be in Jerusalem, you should stop in for, an $8 cup of coffee at the Waldorf. So
nice. Very nice.
All right. So no, the $8 coffee is not very nice.
Oh, so. I think Rabbi Singer sent me some coffee. Oh, he didn't send it to me from Israel. He sent it to me when he was in Jakarta. He said it because that's the island of coffee, and it was supposedly one of the best coffees like ever, and it was. But anyway, enough small talk. I'll let you get right into this thing.
Let's get
busy.
So first of all, yes. So as William said so beautifully, we are really focusing in the text. Now, my approach to teaching Hebrew, I teach modern Hebrew as well as biblical Hebrew. My approach to modern Hebrew is we just kind of saturate you in a natural approach to the language, like you learned your first language. No, your parents never sat you down and said, "Okay, today we're learning the irregular verb. Repeat after me. Eat, ate, eaten." None of that stuff. You just picked it up from context and you absorbed it and you made errors and ultimately you self-corrected from overexposure to the correct way to do it. Then there's another approach which usually adults do, and it's like we learned Latin or Greek. I studied 3 years of Greek. The funny thing about it, William, was I can still read it and I can recognize certain forms, accusative versus dative or whatever, and the aorist tense, but I don't have a context for it because it's a matter of use it or lose it.
Right.
So,
Yep.
but since people are really interested in the biblical text, and it's important to be really in it, like the lottery, you got to be in it to win it.
Right.
So we're going to do our best to give you some progressive overexposure to the language as we go through. And as we go through, it's going to be a little ponderous. Now, the prerequisite here is that you know how to read, you understand the vowel points, and you can kind of sound things out. And maybe you have a limited vocabulary of 50, 100 words or whatever it is. Maybe it's more than that. That's great. We're just going to kind of present this as it is, and you'll pick it up for where you are. And as we go through this series, God willing, for quite some time, at least a cycle or two of the Parshiot, then you'll pick up quite a bit because of the repetition that's going to be automatically built into things. So, but we will be going through a verse and picking it apart, saying, what part of speech is this? What are the other related words that connect with this? What's the shorish? What's the root?
Yep.
Well, how does it look this way, that way? We'll take a look. I'm going to show you where to take a word and to analyze it in all of its different forms, especially with a verb. So you'll pick up some tools along the way.
For me,
And then
it
there's
was. For me, it was fun. It became more fun whenever I began to start seeing a pattern to where I could find out what the root word was, and when I saw the prefixes and the suffixes, and
Right.
so as we go into this process, I'll be reading the first reading of each verse. To my comfortable speed. Okay, let me switch screens. I just noticed you pull up your share screen. There we go. Okay.
I did.
So I'll do that, and then and I really strongly recommend you guys to don't, if you know this, if you know the sounds, don't just think them, because part of my problem, I just realized through the last two recordings we did, most of the time I'm reading Hebrew, I'm reading them in my mind, and I don't use my tongue and my lips. And I noticed that it causes me to stumble when I'm trying to read now. You'll hear me say yabba dabba doosh because I messed up on the phonetic part of it. So I really encourage you that as I'm reading through this slowly, do the same thing, but read it out loud so you can hear you and get your tongue used to moving in certain ways, and your what do you call that? Your sounds and stuff like that, your hissing cats, so you can hear that and you can put that into practice, which is one reason why I believe Gavriel has got one of the greatest reishes that I've ever heard. The letter reish, though, and Americans will say reish like with the R, and Spanish people have a tendency to do the roll the tongue reish, but it's not either one. Give us a good reish.
Ruffles have ridges.
Now you can hear that from the back of his throat. It wasn't on the tip of his tongue. That is so cool. Anyway, that's why I say
I can't. By the way, that's what you referred to. There was the Spanish trilled R. I've tried it for years, just like whistling. I can't whistle either.
Really?
So
Oh wow.
no, it's just I've been trying to whistle since I was 5 years old, and now look what happened to me. It made me look old. So I'm really 15. What can I tell you?
That's
all
funny.
right. So let's jump into this. And first thing I want to do, you mentioned prefixes.
Yes.
So I want to give people a really simple tool. As much as possible, I try to create associative techniques or tools so that it's easier to remember certain things. Because the first law of teaching, when I studied in educational psychology in college, and I took a class on that, and they gave us these 7 laws of teaching. I only remember the first one.
Oh, that's funny.
So, yes. And the first law of teaching was to connect the unknown with the known. In other words, associate the new material with something that's already familiar. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a simple tool to remember the 7 prefix letters that will connect to the front of a word that gives some context of meaning. And you'll see what I mean in a moment.
Okay.
Now here's your clue. Okay, here's the 7 letters, and I arranged them. It just happens to be that it turns out to be the names of 2 people that you know from Scripture, Moshe and Kalev, or Chalev in this case, the way it's written here. So, but Moshe and Caleb. So these are the letters. So each one of these letters can affix to the front of a word. Now you obviously can look at this one here and go, oh, Vav, yeah, that means and. So we have Moshe and Caleb. But what do these other ones mean? Well, you look at the hey here and go, oh yeah, I recommend that means the, doesn't it? Okay. And you might recognize that B means in. Okay, but let's look at them as they flow. Okay, so mem can represent from or than. Shin can represent that or which. It's a contraction of a word known as like kasher. The hey obviously is the. The vav represents and. Now it's generally pronounced the. In some context, it's pronounced u. We'll see a case of that in our text study today. Then we have ka on the front of a word that means as or like. It's a comparative term. Lamed can be 2 or 4, and Lamed has a lot of different functions to it. And each of these, by the way, can be looked up as prepositions in the site that the site that I use all the time and recommend to my students all the time is a site called pe'elim.com. We'll go there at one point here today to look at some things. And finally, of course, the letter Beit up here. Here it just means in or on. Sometimes it means with. It just depends on context. And so it's a bit more context driven in biblical Hebrew than it is in modern Hebrew. Modern Hebrew dominantly means in or on.
And you'll find out that some of these letters too will actually have suffix meanings as well, which we'll get into that later. So like the mem, of course, it would look different. It would be a square box instead of a final sophet or whatever. But then also the hey can dictate whether it's masculine or feminine. Right? I don't know if you call that a suffix.
Yes, that's you're quite right. Especially the hey at the end of a word has some special functions, and one of the regular features of Hebrew is its irregularity. So
don't you love that one?
So give it some malox.
Yes,
right?
That's funny.
So it has some regularly occurring irregular features because you will learn, everybody's learned. Look, we're starting out here with the name of this Parsha, which is Mishpatim. And we look at the Yud and the Mem here and we go, oh, okay, here's Mishpat. Mishpat means judgment, also can mean sentence. That's what's interesting, right? Because in the world of justice, somebody gets a sentence, right? But this literally is like in grammar, a sentence in modern Hebrew. And the im here, the yud and the mem is a masculine plural. So I'm talking about more than one thing. So we have a yeled and we have yeledim. We have kelev and we have klavim, dogs. We have a sefer, a book, and sfarim. All right. So we regularize that in our mind. But the yud and the mem at the end of something isn't always masculine plural. So we have to get ready for the surprises as they come along, and we'll just take them as they occur and try not to need Xanax or Prozac afterwards. Okay. All right, William, you are our designated reader or driver through the text here. So why don't you go ahead and take your pointer?
Okay.
And I'll let mine sit idle at the moment and take us through the first pass on the text.
Okay, mine is the one that's had too much caffeine on your screen right now. It's shaking like crazy. Okay, so here we go. Va'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifnehem.
Excellent. Okay, just a second. I'm moving my, there we go. So put it there. Excellent. You said it beautifully.
Thank you.
Va'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. So we see here the vav stands for and. Notice again, it's not over here. Ele is what's known as a demonstrative pronoun. It's a pronoun that demonstrates who or what we're talking about. There are actually 4 of these. We in English we have 2. We do have 4. We have this and that and these and those. Okay, but in Hebrew, we're going to have ze and zot, which means this. This is a feminine form of this. Right. And we have ele, and elu. So this is the masculine form because it's mishpatim is a masculine
Would
noun.
there be elav also?
Elav means about to, depending on what the letter is. If elav is like to him or about him.
Right, okay.
So ele means these.
Oh, okay, I got it. Sorry, my brain. I see. Go ahead, continue.
You drinking too much coffee again, William? Or are
Yeah.
you putting something in that coffee? So
I think my magnet
okay.
is flawed. I'm picking up trash along with the metal. I need to stop. I need to just pick up the metal.
Back to beachcombing. Okay, so these are there's no R, there's no what's called copular. There's no am, is, or are in Hebrew. So we're literally saying, and these the judgments.
Nice.
That's so it sounds a little primitive in terms of its syntax, and that's why, by the way, sometimes when you hear Israelis speak, they throw some interesting expressions like "it's depend" as opposed to "it depends."
Oh, right.
But
Interesting.
okay, the Elia Mishpatim Asher, which
Okay,
now here it uses the word.
back on Mishpatim real fast. So you got the prefix ha, and the mishpat would be the root word, or mish. Yeah, and so the
Yes,
yud mem suffix, right?
that's correct. So
Okay.
we have the prefix hey, the suffix im, the root word mishpat, and the root which would be for the verb
Shafat.
and for the noun would be shin pei tet,
Perfect.
shafat or shofet. We get the word judge. Yesterday, I was in a place where people were kind of getting rid of books, and we don't throw them away. And I picked up a copy of Yoshua V'Shoftim, which is Joshua and the Judges.
Nice.
So Shoftim is the book. Okay, which tasim? That's where tasim. You look at this and you go, "Oh, that's another plural noun.
It
It must
looks
be
like it,
masculine
doesn't it?
because it does, doesn't it?" That's why I
Yeah.
said earlier when we started that one of the regular features about Hebrew is its irregular features, and this is one of them. Once you know this, I don't even think anymore that way. But in the beginning, for sure, when I'd regularized one idea and then I wanted to apply that, it's like, when all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. You've heard that expression before. And so if all you know is that yud mem equals masculine plural, then every time you see a yud mem at the end of a word, you're going to think,
Right,
oh,
right.
masculine plural. And it's not what this is at all.
But in this case, the
This is,
tav is the prefix, and the sim would be the root word.
that's correct.
Okay.
So if I take away this tough right here and I put in a lamed and I say lasim, it would be to put or to place or to set. Here the translation is you shall set. So this one word in Hebrew is equivalent to 3 words in English. And this tells me you because it comes from ata. And then here's the root itself. Now, it's interesting because this is future. Oftentimes in Hebrew, and this is one of the confusing, regularly occurring irregularities, oftentimes in Hebrew, there'll be a vav in front of a verb that looks future, but it really is past. Or you see vice versa. You'll see a vav in front of a verb that's in the past, but it really means the future.
So
And many names.
Can you use this word, for example? Can you put is vasim? Is that a Hebrew, like, would that work? If in a sentence.
If I were using an imperative, if I were giving a command form, if I just say sim,
Yeah.
like sim zepo,
Yeah. Put it
but
there.
that's very abrupt. Using the command form, especially in spoken Hebrew, is considered kind of rude. So we'll use tasim.
Okay.
So if some guy was delivering a box to me, and I could say, okay, tasim zepo, put it here. All right. So this is just a simple, regularly occurring. Now, I think what I'm going to do just for a second is I'll come over here to this. Where is my?
Oh,
Let's go
Palim. Got it.
here. Okay. And I said to you, if I just take that word, I know it's a verb, and I type in here, taf, shin, yud, and mem sofit, the final mem. I'm going to throw it in here, and it gives me some results. All right. So it gives me lasim. That's the one I'm looking for to put on.
Nice.
And I want to see the whole thing. So I say, oh, let me see the full conjugation. Now, what I'm looking at is, again, here's the meaning. Here's the root, sin, yud, mem.
Got it.
Not shin, but sin, yud, mem. See, so the dot is on the left because all the leftists are sinners, right? Sin, yud,
Right.
mem.
That's exactly how I learned that letter, the sin shin. Like sin. Yeah, because shin is on the right, and sin is never right.
Because if you sin, you'll be left out. Right? So,
and by the way, for the viewer out there, this is pealim.com, Pealim. It's a great website. So,
Pealim.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, very high, a lot of great features here. But if you just want to see what's a verb look like in all of its different possibilities of representation, then it's right here. And it starts out with the present. So sam, sama, samim, samot. Here's the past, and then here's the future down here. And then the imperative means command form. Do this. But I said we don't really use this. You see the exclamation points here?
Right.
Seem, simi, simu. But that's considered kind of gas.
Okay.
You know, gas means kind of rude. But here's we were looking for the word tasim. You put, and we see it right here.
To put,
There it is. Okay, you put. You say, well, wait a minute, Sanders. Not so slippery. It says it right here also. This says tasim. This says tasim. Yeah, because one of the regularly occurring irregular features of Hebrew is that whatever we say to the guy here directly, we say about the girl indirectly. You is talking to. Third person is talking about. Okay?
Oh,
we're
wow,
not talking to a person. We're talking about a person. That's important to know.
That's
okay,
a little confusing,
context.
but it'll get easier as you go around.
It gets easier
yeah.
with time. When I
Right.
first saw it and heard it decades ago, I went, "I'll never get this." Yeah, you do.
Right.
So okay, so there's that. That's a little
Okay.
excursion into a resource that I wanted you to be aware of.
Very nice.
So we've done Ve'eli Mishpatim Asher Tasim Lefnehem.
All right.
Okay, moving on to the next verse. Go ahead, William. I'll let you drive.
Okay. Let me put my mouse back over there. There we go. Okay. So ki tikne eved ivri shesh shanim ya'avod uvashvi'it yetze. There's that tricky spot. You taught me on 2 times that nobody saw. I said lachafshi, and for you guys who know your vowels, you would agree, most of you. Chinam. Go ahead, Gavriel, because I still find that fascinating, and to me, you still have to have a really good eye to catch that.
You do, yes. It takes a sensitive eye. So, all right.
Here,
So again, you
that
said
little vowel right there. Pay attention to that one, and then compare it
Right
to the
there,
others. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna leave my mouse
okay.
right there. Go
So
ahead.
ki tikne eved ivri shesh shanim ya'avod uvashvi'it yetze lechofshi chinam.
And I
So
said,
we'll come back to this.
yeah, and I said
You said
lachafshi.
chafshi.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I want everyone to notice, if you can, let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. Okay. There we go. Okay. Notice the difference between this one, okay, this kamatz, and this kamatz. All right. Don't worry about the little line here. It's just an accent mark. This one's a little bit longer. Notice the difference in size. This is if we think of it like a T, this T has a longer leg to it than this one does. This kamatz has a longer leg. So when that occurs, then the pronunciation is O, not ah, and it happens a lot. There are a bunch of words that do this. So in modern Hebrew, we might write this with what's known as a cholam vav, a vav with a dot over the top. It's easy to remember that, by the way, because the dot is over, so it means O,
Nice.
as opposed to the one that has the dot in the middle, which is like somebody hits you in the stomach and you go, ooh. That's how that's pronounced.
Yep.
Okay, but so let me drop this back down to the size that we were before. Okay, good. There we are. So let's go back to the frontier. So we'll come back to this when we pass through it. So the word key is a key word. Why? Well, let's click on it. Come over to the dictionary. Come back down here. So I clicked on it once and it brought up this sidebar. I want to click on it again twice. And now it brings up kind of an instant dictionary. The first word is not always the word that it is. So
And
we actually
this
have to
is
come down a little bit.
all these tools are on Safaria?
Yes, they are.
Really? So Safaria.org. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Now, again, there are a lot of things I don't like about Safaria because I found a lot of liberal stuff in there that's just kind of
Not
I
very
don't really
careful.
care for. But I
Right.
primarily use it just for texts. It is filled with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of texts, both biblical texts, rabbinic texts, Hasidic texts, halachic texts. They're all here. Some of them are like this, where they're presented in English and Hebrew, and some of them are Hebrew only. Some of them have vowel points. Some of them give you an option to position well, I don't want to go there right now. It's distracting.
Yeah, right.
But I can look at this. Well, actually, I could do this. If I can, right now, I've got it in the form of the biblical text. This is without vowel points. This here is with simplified vowel points. That's what I'm going to do right now. Now, you notice where that was a little line right here before?
It's gone, yeah. Let's leave
It's
it
not
there.
there now.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it that way.
Yeah, that's good.
So just again, to show people, so this is without vowel points.
Right.
This is with the biblical text, with all the markings, what's called trup, the cantillation marks. And this one in the middle is without the cantillation marks, but with the vowel points. Okay, so that one, that you know how that works. All right, so now we're coming back to the word key here, and look at the different possibilities that this word can have.
Right.
It's a lot.
Wow.
So now we pick up on the fact that Hebrew is also very context driven. So you have to kind of understand the context in which the word is used. You say, man, Sanders, that's a lot to remember. Nah, it'll take you some time. I mean, it took me literally
Right.
years. When I started out, I thought, oh, in 5 years, I'll know the biblical text. More like 10, 15, 20. And the text of the Chumash, the five books of Moses, I'm pretty comfortable with. There's some technical terms, like when we get to Leviticus in particular.
Okay.
But and the prophets, those are tough. But Psalms, I read Psalms every day. I have for a year. I've been doing the daily readings, and the more you read it, the easier it gets. And the same thing will be true in your experience with this.
That's awesome.
So it's the old Chinese proverb of, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. You've got to start somewhere. So right now we're on the word key. We know that it means, in this case, when. Tikne is another verb. It's a future verb. It's just because it has a hey on the end doesn't mean it's a feminine noun. It's not. It's a verb. And it happens to be a particular category of verb that where the third letter of the root, this is the root, kuf, nun, hey. Sorry, I keep looking away. I have another screen over here.
No, that's okay.
My big screen. So this is the root. So if I were to take and change these vowel points down here to kana, that would give me the dictionary form of this word. Now, how do I remember what the dictionary form of the word is? Well, you do it in the form of a question. What did he do yesterday? What does that mean? I would say, well, the answer is kana, he bought. The dictionary form of a Hebrew word, so in English, we use a present, buy. Okay. And then you look for the past as it renders it in somewhere embedded in the dictionary. In Hebrew, if you're using a dictionary, you need the root, and the form that it's going to be always corresponds with, here's the technical jargon coming up here. I'm sorry for you, but if you're a grammarian like I am, you get it. It's always going to be third person, singular, masculine. So what did he do yesterday? He, not we, not they, he. So this is the singular. Now putting the taf on the front of it is just like we put the taf on the front over here. So, well, Sanders, why is there a dot here and not a dot here? We're not going down that rabbit trail right now. Maybe for something much more advanced, but
okay.
There's a reason for it, but it's not important now.
By the way, you'll be happy to know that I rotated your screen so it looks like you're looking at. I did a little screen trickery, so it looks like you're looking at what you're teaching at instead of looking away. You'll see later when you watch it. Everybody else watching it already saw it. Clever.
That explains everything. Thank you.
Okay, so go for it.
This word tikne, let me bring up the translation also down here. Tikne has to do with acquiring, purchasing, buying.
And no, it's not connected. I found out with our last recording doesn't have anything to do with tikkun, like tikkun olam. It's a different word, right?
That's exactly right. That's a whole different root. Okay. But what I was going to say is that there's a bunch of verbs that in the root, the third letter, many Hebrew words are 3 letters. Most of them are 3. Some are 4, called quadriliterals. And there's a certain subcategory where the third letter of the root is a hey. And it has just slightly different music than the other verbs that are similar but not the same to it, the ones related to it. And we'll get into that as well. So I call this a pa'al. It's a number 1 verb. Some of you know kal, the easy, simple form. So when you acquire, and then this phrase, eved ivri, ivri. So obviously here we have, it's like they're translating it slave Hebrew.
So there's no prefix, no suffix on either one of those words. Those are the root words.
That's right. Okay. That means an or a, right? So we're talking about when you acquire a Hebrew slave, and of course this.
I guess ivri or ever is the root word there, though, right? So why would there be a yud there if ever means crossed over or whatever?
Okay. Excellent question, because this is an adjective.
Okay.
Not all, but many Hebrew adjectives end with a yud.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Okay, and this is one of them. So yes, the root is ayin vav, ayin veit resh. Avraham Avinu was the first Ivri. He was the first, and it does mean to cross over. Who avar tekvish. He he crossed over the street. But here it simply means Hebrew. Okay. You find, especially like, for example, in the book of Esther, talks about Ivrim and other different places throughout the biblical text, you find the word Ivri. So we're going to come back later and talk to you about why the word Eved here why this is a bad translation.
Oh, yes, right.
And why this gives a connotation that worked very well for the slave masters in the 1800s, but was completely wrong in terms of its application. All right. And of course, it's a hot topic today. And sometimes you get something in your YouTube feed or whatever you're watching that refers back to this, the whole 1619 project, et cetera.
That'll work.
This is not it. It's not it at all. So if someone's using the Bible to justify slavery, they really need to find another book because it doesn't apply.
And another teacher.
And we'll see why. So now it says that when you acquire this type of person, then that person is going to, it says here, shesh shanim, 6 years. Now, here's another one of those regularly occurring irregularities. How do we say New Year in Hebrew, William?
New Year would be I would say Happy New Year. Oh, so Shana Tova, Shana Tova.
Right. Shana Tova. Right.
So would there be a hey there right there? Not the Yud Mem. Why'd they drop the
hey? Right. Excellent question.
So that's the question. Okay, cool. Yay.
That's it. You're good.
Bravo.
They're leading you right along. Just like in court, they lead you right along. So the singular of this is Shana Tova, Rosh Hashanah, for example. Some people say Rosh Hashanah. So it was Rosh Hashanah. But the plural is an irregularity. So we talk about shanim. So how would you say a good year?
A good year? Well, there would be ha, not because there's no a, right?
No, there is right. Just a good year.
I don't know. So I would say hashanim, or ha
A,
tova, or something like that.
Okay, so you're right that there's no what's called indefinite article, or an, like apple or an apple. You just say the word shana.
Okay.
And it means a year.
Okay.
Now, tell me a good year.
Shana tova.
Yes, beautiful, fantastic.
Okay.
Yes. So Shana tova. Now, how would I say, here comes the trick question. How would you say good years?
Ooh, I would think Shana tov. Well, actually, you would think Shanim tovim or Shana or the older alternative. What was I going to say? Shana tovim or something crazy like that.
Okay, so
or Shanim tova or something weird like that.
Okay, very good. So it's really Shanim tovot.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I forgot. So you got the Yud Mem and then the oat. You got the Eem and the oat, so masculine, feminine. Explain why that happened there.
I did. It's an irregularity.
Okay.
So
that's
for example, it happens with a lot of commonly occurring terms. For example, what's the word for table?
Shulchan?
Yes.
Okay.
Shulchan is a masculine noun. Do you know the plural of shulchan?
It should be, if it's masculine, it should be shulchanim.
Should be.
But it's shulchanot?
Yes.
And it's still masculine?
Yes.
That's weird.
Now, what's the word for big?
That's a simple word. Oh my gosh. Rav is one of them. Great. Or big. Gadol.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Tell me big table.
Okay. And I got pieces, I guess. So Shulchan Gadol.
Beautiful. Fantastic.
Okay.
Now, what was the plural for shulchan?
Shulchanot.
Yes.
Okay.
Now tell me big tables.
Oh boy. Shulchanot Gadot. Is that right?
You would think so.
I know.
Right?
You set me up again.
I did. Yes, I did. I'm
I love
having
it.
Great fun.
I love it.
Great fun doing it.
Shulchanot
But
Tovim. Okay.
but it's shulchanot gedolim.
Gedolim, yeah. Wow, that's wild. Okay.
Okay, because the adjective has to agree with whatever the base form of the noun is. So
Hmm.
now this is crazy stuff to try to learn along the way. That's why people who come to Israel and learn Hebrew, modern Hebrew, and by the way, I'm illustrating a pretty good point here. My acquisition of Hebrew was modern first, biblical after. Even though in the Bible college that I went to all those centuries ago, I took an intro to biblical Hebrew and learned to be dangerous in a Strong's Concordance. But beyond that, when I got to Israel, I could read letters, read words, sound them out, whatever, but I didn't know what I was saying. The beautiful thing is that when you learn a language that's at home in your tongue, it's much faster to get it into your heart and your head.
I see.
So now, when I read the biblical text, so much of it corresponds with the modern. I would say well over 80% most of the time. So it's much easier to do that. So that's why I teach students online and we have a great time. And sometimes then we'll dip into biblical texts and look at differences for the more advanced students. So here we're starting with as students at a more fundamental level
Right.
and trying to pick it apart. And it's going to seem a little awkward and a little challenging at times, like these phenomena.
Okay.
But now you know this is a foundation. When we run into it again, I can just refer to it very lightly, briefly, and off we go. So tonight we won't cover a huge amount of texts, but we will get a lot of essentials.
Right.
So what's the idea here? So when a person acquires this type of individual to come and work for him, that person who's working for him, called the Eved Ivri, which is a concept in itself, is going to work for him. Ya'avod. Ya'avod means he will work. Also means
nice.
it will work. Okay.
So the yud, yud prefix that in this case it would be he or him. He, I guess.
It's future.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know what? Let's go back to, so what's the shoresh here? What's the root?
Avid.
Okay. So it's, by the way, you notice that this
right
and this, they're the same.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But this is a noun, avid, and this is a verb. I suggest, as we did earlier with the word tasim up here, that you go to pealim.com, pealim.com, and type that word in there and see what you get in terms of results. This will come up as he or it will work.
My dear friends, hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNaChTalk.com, TaNaChTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
Type that word in there and see what you get in terms of results. This will come up as he or it will work. So when you acquire a Hebrew worker, let's call him, he's going to work for you. He will work 6 years. 6 years he will work. Uvashveit. So there are 3 things going on here. We have a prefix vav, a prefix beit or veit, and then we have the word shvi'it. Now, usually there's a yud in here, but it's not here. It's known as chaser. It's missing. It's lacking. Shvi'it means 7th. So this is number 6.
So the so the tav is or is not a suffix?
It's part of the word.
Okay, got it.
Now, listen carefully. We have cardinal numbers and we have ordinal numbers. Cardinal numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Ordinal numbers are 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc.
That makes sense.
Hebrew also has these.
Okay.
So today is Monday. How do we say Monday in Hebrew, if you know?
Yom Sheni.
Yom Sheni.
Right.
Okay, so Sheni, it's not Yom Shnaim or Shtaim.
Oh,
it's Yom Sheni.
Right. I see. So
okay, so the same thing is true here.
Okay.
So Shvi'it means 7th. Now, actually, the base form is Shvi'i. That's the masculine form. This is a feminine form.
Okay.
Uva Shvi'it. What is Shvi'it referring to here? It's referring back over here to years, the 7th year.
Okay.
And you can see it down here in the translation, in the 7th year. But now you understand why. This has an antecedent. It has something that goes before it. It's referring back to the years here. And I said before that the adjective, the describing word, has to agree with the noun in its base or its singular form. And it does. We see it right here. Okay. I hope that's not too much for everybody. You can write me and tell me how frustrated you might have been.
No, this is really good. This is what we want to learn right here.
But this is what we're really trying to dig down deep, and pick it apart. So we understand then that Uvashvi'it, what's going to happen in the seventh year? Yetzeh. Now, this is a really interesting word, and I definitely want you to go to pe'elim.com and pop that in on the keyboard, on the virtual keyboard, and you'll see some interesting phenomena with this particular word, because the root of this word is Yud Tzadi Aleph.
So what about the Torah Parsha Kitetse? Is it associated
Yes.
at all?
Yes, it is exact. Yes, it definitely is related.
Really?
Ki
Okay.
Tetse. And it's one of those. It's one of those that's written Tetse. He will go out, but it has a vav in front of it. I said before, there are some cases where a vav in front of a future verb throws it into the past.
Wow. Vav conversive, I guess is what they call
Okay,
it. Nice.
that's a conversive vav. So,
Right.
but this one is written in the root form, and there's reasons for this. I don't want to go into the reasons. It's too long an explanation. But this is the future form, and the past form would be yatsa.
Mm.
Yetze is future. Hu yetze machar. He will go out or he will leave tomorrow. Yatsa etmol. He went out. He left yesterday.
Wow.
Making it personal. Yatsati. The ending suffix t. Yatsati. I went out. Okay. So this is it tells us that this individual who was hired has a 6-year contract, and at some point in the 7th year, he's supposed to go. And he goes out, how? L'chofshi chinam. He goes out basically freely, and it gives it an extra word here. It's kind of superfluous, what we call meyutar in Hebrew, meyutar, superfluous or kind of redundant. They convey a similar idea. Freely, without payment. Chinam means no charge. Okay, so that's what I wanted to function on this. So once again, ki tiknei eved ivrei shesh shanim ya'avod uvashveit yetzeh l'chofshi chinam.
Okay, so lachofshi, can you go back up there real fast? So what's the root word and suffix prefix there? Or is there?
It would be right. It would be right here. These three.
Chovesh or chavash, whatever.
For example, the Hebrew word for the Hebrew word chofish, just take away the yud, take away the lamed, put a vav in here, a cholam vav,
Okay.
the dot over the top. That chofish is known as like a vacation,
Interesting.
like a lot of schools in America right now.
Oh,
Jewish
see
day
that
schools.
actually helps a lot right there. That really helps me a lot. Thank you for bringing that in. Okay,
Well,
good.
that's the whole reason we have this program.
Yeah,
and all the
that's
people
great.
watch. It's
That's
therapy for William. Okay.
Yes, it's hopefully somebody else will benefit from it.
Welcome to this new edition of Therapy for William.
Welcome to my world.
All right, let's see how far we can get on this one. This is another. So I'm
Okay,
going
let's spend 4 or 5 minutes on this one, and then spend the rest of the hour, if you don't mind, taking the last 10
I don't
minutes on the weekly Parsha, and then we'll repeat process again next week with less introduction, because now we've got the introduction in episode 1. Very good. Okay, im bagapo. Oh, where's my mouse? Oh, I was on the wrong screen. I got mouse showing. Okay, so here we go.
Look for the cheese.
There we go. Im bagapo yavo. Bagapo, Yetse, Im, Baal, Isha, Hu, Vayatza, Ishto, Imo.
Beautiful. You read it really nicely.
Thank you.
Im bagapo yavo bagapo yetze. Im baal ishahu v'yatza ishto imo.
One thing I want to point out too before you go to this was a little confusing to me in the very beginning, was this letter im bagapo and then yavo. So they look like the same letter, but that little dagesh makes that a bet and a vet. And the way I remembered that would be the bet. I was thinking like somebody playing poker. They put a penny in the middle, penny in the pot, so it's a bet. So you're gonna bet money, bet that dot's gonna be there all the time. Anyway, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the pay fay.
Then you look at the biblical text in on a cloth on the parchment, and there are no vowels.
There's no vowels. So, but same thing with the pay. So the pay, you're gonna pay somebody money, that there's a penny there. So pay versus fay.
That's very good. Very good. You know, I should just let you do the class all the time. You're great. I'll sit back. I'll do the technical stuff.
That's funny.
Heading to Texas.
That's funny.
Okay, so let's listen to the text again. Say, im bagapo yavo bagapo yetze ve'im ba'al ishahu v'yatza ishto imo. Okay, So this is a conditional word. The word right here, you see it right here, if. Now, I do not like this translation
Right.
at all, but we'll get to that in a minute. So there are the two words that sound alike pretty much. They're called homophones, okay? Sounded like words like the word here and here, or there and there in English, or two and two, right? We have
right.
TOO, and TWO. All right, so Hebrew has some homophones as well, although if it's pronounced properly, like the Yemenites do, I think the Yemenites have the best pronunciation of Hebrew, then every letter is actually different. There's a difference between aleph and an ayin. Here we have a case of an aleph and an ayin here. And you can actually hear me say it a little bit differently. There's a constriction of the muscles around my vocal cords. It took me years to get this. Im and aim. It's almost like swallowing a little bit, okay? Arabic is loaded with it. A lot of ayins in Arabic. And I studied Arabic, and I used to speak pretty good Arabic.
So say those two words, im and emo, so I can hear you.
Okay. Im. Aimon.
Oh, I did see it.
Very,
I never caught
difference.
it before, but now I can see it. Okay, cool.
Like I said here about this word, this isn't. A lot of people pronounce this. Now, some people would pronounce it just as one syllable. Baal. No. That means without, or they'll say Baal, and it's Baal. Baal. It's a little kind of constriction in there.
Guttural, yeah.
But it's very foreign to the Western way of pronunciation. So it's very Semitic. So now let's translate it. So im, the word im, there's the other word im with an ayin. That word means with. This one means if.
Or if you're looking at it differently in a different context, it would be people.
Oh, that would be That's a different word altogether.
Spelt the same, but it's at a different context. It's ayin.
Right. For example, we talk about Am Yisrael.
Yeah,
talk about the people of Israel. Yes, or Am Kadosh.
Right.
Okay, a holy nation. Am Kadosh.
And that's spelled ayin mem, right?
Yes, ayin mem sofit. That's correct.
Got it.
Okay, so this word. How do we remember the difference? Just a quick little one of Williams' tricks, like you call it. How do I remember the difference between if the word is spelled with an ayin and a mem, or an aleph and a mem? What's the first letter here? Aleph. If it tells you the word right, it's right in if.
Oh, right. That's good. I like that. Nice.
That's the little trick that we use. So if I know that if there's an aleph, it's if, then I automatically know that the other form is going to be with. All right. So that's how I did it years ago. So it says that im b'gapo yavo. This is a really strange word, gapo. It's very rare. It only may be just I'd have to do a concordance search or a search in Safaria because it'll pull it up. Very rarely used. Gapo. It's kind of related to the word for body in Hebrew, which is a funny kind of a goofy word because it's the word goof. Hey, you have a really goofy goof.
That's great. I like that.
Or the Disney character Goofy had a very goofy goof. Okay, so that's a way to associate it. So there is a word gaf that means like a limb, Limb. So it means single or alone. So basically, it's telling us if the guy showed up alone, that's how he's going to leave. So that's what the first phrase here means. Im b'kapo yavo. Bekapo Yetze.
Very good.
If he comes in single, he goes out that way. That's what Yetze. Now we looked at Yetze up over here also. We saw the word right there.
Right.
Now, im ba'ali shahu, that's the phrase. Im ba'ali shahu with. So here it was. Excuse me, I said with. That's funny. If he's the husband of a wife, and then the who is kind of. It's almost like using like we would in English. But like for is, but there is no is in Hebrew. So it's emphasizing something. So if the man happens to have a wife, he's married, v'yatsa ishto imo, and basically she will go out. So this is past. This is future. But though this is like kind of one of those conversive or reversing verbs. So it's written in the past, but it indicates that, right, see here, his wife shall leave with him.
Right, gotcha.
But it's actually, if you just drop the vowel altogether and say yatsa, let me talk about somebody, I don't know, Veronica. Hey, for Veronica, he yatsa. She went out. But this is that conversive vav that takes a verb in the past and converts it in the future. And it also means and as well. That's what I found so confusing about this when I was trying to master this aspect, this important puzzle piece of the Hebrew language. I mean, thank God I did. It just something one day something just clicked, and I hope that for all of you, because it could be kind of a brain teaser for a while. So she's going to get out. It says, and yatsa, and she will go out, ishto, so his wife. So this comes from the word isha. There's ish and isha. We find that in the biblical text in the Garden of Eden. Okay, ish and isha, and why was Chava or Eve called isha? Because she was taken from ish. But what happens is, well, this is possessive. What do I mean by possessive? This is showing that there's some belongingness here. This is basically, I could say, ha isha shelo. You know the word shelo,
Right.
of him or his. Or I could say ishto. The hay goes away, the shell goes away, the vav comes in and shows. And we're going to see this a lot, by the way. This vav ending at the end of the word, having to do with attribution of possession to some individual, a guy in this case. So v'yatsa ishto imo. So this means his wife, and again with him. So here we see the his wife. Here's the his right there, and here's the with him right here, imo.
So the root word to the woman would be the isha, right?
That's correct.
So in that prayer, the Eshet Chayil, say Eshet Chayil means
Eshet Chayil. Yes, that's
so.
right.
How
yes,
does
yes.
So what does the
Okay.
tav mean there? If it's isha, then what is Eshet?
Okay, I'm going to try and say this succinctly,
Okay.
knowing that we're going to come back to it.
Okay,
All
good.
right. Hebrew has nouns, right? Every language has nouns.
Okay.
Some nouns are followed by an adjective. We just did the whole thing about a big table.
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
Shulchan Gadol. Okay. But sometimes there are two nouns come together. For example, like field hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
Military intelligence. So we have noun plus adjective, and we also have noun plus noun. Noun plus noun makes the first noun more specific. In Hebrew, it makes the first noun more
Okay.
specific. In English, it makes the second noun. That's the anchor one. Okay. This is describing this. In
Got it.
Hebrew, it's reversed.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
So now it gets a little more complicated. There are feminine nouns that end in a hey, like isha. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you're going to use another noun after it, or a pronoun after it, where you're combining it like this, the hey morphs into a taf.
Okay.
Oy vey, I have to remember all this. No, don't try to remember it.
Yeah, just
It's going to come up. It's going to come up often enough, and William's
Yeah.
going to ask good enough questions, usually on his own. I didn't prompt him. That are going to stimulate this kind of conversation. We didn't plan this in the beginning. It's a great
Right.
question. This did not come up in the two previous times we did this. So when you're talking about the Proverbs 31, or that's sung on Friday night, Eshet Chayil Miyimtza, right? So
That's right.
a lot of people who've been to a Shabbat table know that. So Eshet Chayil, the word Chayil is the word valor, so it's a noun. So what's the formula here? Noun plus noun. It's not like beautiful woman, Isha Yafa. That's how we would say beautiful woman. Or a wealthy woman, Isha Ashira, wealthy woman. This is noun plus noun. So if I wanted to say a woman of the city, Eshet Ha'ir, Eshet Ha'ir, or a woman of the country, Eshet Hakfar, or of the village. Okay, there is an adjective for village, like Isha Kifrit. Yeah, that's all right. But I don't want to get too further.
Sure,
That's
sure.
why that changed, and
Okay.
so we're going to see this happen a lot. Now, I would like to go now back to a little bit of interpretation here that you talked about, if that's okay if we do that now.
Yeah. So right now, just for the viewer now, we're now exiting Hebrew teaching mode, and we're going into a little Torah nugget now for you.
Okay. So we said before, we alluded to it, that this particular, well, first of all, let's back up for a second. Think about it. We just came out of the 10 Commandments, right? Moshe's on the mountain. He comes down. He's got the tablets, right? Take 2 in the morning, and and then we bump through this thing about an altar at the very end of the Parshat Yitro, and now we come into this phrase that says ve'ele. Now the vav here is connecting the content of this parsha with the previous parsha. And these. So we just did all this, the 10 big ones, right? The Ivy League, right? The Big Ten. And now we're coming into things that are a whole list of so many of mitzvot that come up here. And we're going to kind of go into that in just a second also. But Rashi, the commentator, the medieval commentator, tells us that just as the Aseret Debrot, just as the 10 Commandments were given at Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, so these also have the weight and gravity of being given at Har Sinai. Okay, so these are more details. And so these Mishpatim, these judgments, if you will, have the same weight as Aseret Debrot, as the commandments that were given there. That's the first thing I wanted to say here. And then Moshe is told to place these in before the people. So he needs to put them in such a way that they remember them, okay? And there's a whole system of 4 times of repetition that the commentators talk about that people didn't just hear it once. They got it again and again and again from different sources as they were taught. Now let's get into the meat of this, because this is one of the most abused texts in all of the Hebrew Bible. So that when you acquire or when you buy, and this sounds like the slave block, right? It sounds terrible. You know, how did this guy end up as a slave? How did a Hebrew, a Jew, end up as a slave? Okay, so now, were there a lot of prisons in the land of Israel, William, during this time?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, there weren't.
No.
Okay, there were not. So if someone did something, in this case, he stole something, then the restitution has to be made. Because and you see it further on in this week's parsha. I was reading it earlier today when I went to Mincha. It says later on that if somebody steals a cow or a sheep, if he steals 1 cow, he doesn't go offer a blood sacrifice. He has to come back with 5 cows. That's how he makes restitution. And if he stole a sheep, he has to come back with 4 sheep. That's his restitution. That's where he gets his forgiveness. He has to make it up. Okay. In this case, we have a guy who stole something. He creates a chov, he creates a liability, and he goes to the court, the Sanhedrin, the Beit Din, if you will, the house of judgment. Okay. And they say, okay, you're going to go work for this guy for 6 years. And so the one who was violated gets compensated, because the money it says here, when you acquire, so somebody acquires this Hebrew slave, that money goes to what? Goes to compensate for what was stolen. Okay, the guy gets paid off, the recompenses happen. Now this guy goes and works for 6 years, where he works for the one who, as it were, acquired him. But where is he taken to? Some shed in the back? No. He's brought into the man's life. And this is how rectification, or you used the word tikkun earlier, is a very, very good word. This is how a reparation of the soul takes place, because this is how what's the word that they use in the penal institutions, where they want to make a person better, it's I'm trying to remember the English word.
Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway,
they'll come back rectification, to it, yeah. I guess. Okay. So what happens is this man who stole, and maybe he was poor, or there was a need, if he's married, his family, whatever, he did something he shouldn't have done for whatever the that's a hard word to say, exigencies, and whatever the urgent need was, but he got busted. So now he goes into this servitude. He goes to labor to pay off things, okay? Because he got to pay back the guy that gave the money for him, okay? And that's going to take 6 years. And then in the 7th year, or the Jubilee year, he's going to go free. And if he came there by himself, he's going to go out by himself. And he came with a wife, then he's going to go out with his wife. So and by the way, the work that he does, he's not doing, like, this is a terrible example, but back on the plantation, there were the slaves that worked in the field, and there were the slaves that worked in the house. Okay, and there are terms for that, which are very pejorative terms, unfortunately, and I definitely won't use them here. But there was a distinction made between the ones who were out there laboring in the cotton fields and the ones that were cooking and cleaning in the house. Well, this particular person would not be one out there picking the cotton. This person would be in the house doing things that were a bit more sophisticated and having some close proximity to the person who acquired him. Let's call him his boss, all right? And that boss would transfer or teach or condition this individual to change his character. Now that takes time. If he had a mentality that said, I can steal if I have a need, then it takes a while to switch that over to say, I can't ever do that again. And also the sentence of 6 years would also condition the person to say, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
And he's replacing what's called a bad midah, the character quality, bad character trait, with a midah tova, with a good character trait. And that had to be done, as I love to say this about Jewish tradition and Jewish observance and Jewish living and Jewish learning. You got to get it from somebody who's got it before you.
Right.
That's why we use the word for, what's the word for tradition? Tradition, Masorah. Okay. And what does it literally mean? The root word of Masorah means, I could say to you, Timsoli to hand me this. You have to be in close proximity for someone to hand you something,
so it's
right?
Down like Masoretic text, basically.
Right. The Masoretic text is something that was handed down, all right? So it's the same thing. The person who blew it got put into servitude as a result of his actions, goes into kind of I don't want to call it a house arrest because that means his own house, but he's in kind of a house arrest in this environment for that 6-year period to learn to live differently. Okay. And then he goes out. Now, maybe he's learning a trade, learning some skills. He's acquiring maybe new speech habits. In other words, the idea was to lift him up from where he was so that he goes out ready to be, we like to use the word Mensch. It's a Yiddish word based on German. It means, but it doesn't just mean man is in German. It means somebody who has very good character qualities. So when you hear somebody hear the phrase, hey, be a Mensch or Menschlichkeit from the Yiddish vernacular, then it means somebody who has really positive qualities. One other thing that we run into in this, it's further down,
before you go, I was going to ask you to comment also on, because I know that there was two things that came to mind. One was in one commentary I heard from Chabad.org, it was talking about if a family voluntarily goes into servitude because they're in dire straits, they can do that as well. But also, in the black slavery that this is not about, where they would beat their slaves and all this other stuff, you were not. It was forbidden for you to beat your slave, or even in that case, because they could go free if they had a broken limb or busted out tooth. Right.
Yes,
and
that's right.
And from what I've heard too, that if you had if you only had one pillow in the house, guess who gets it? It's not you. You got to give it to the slave because he gets treated better than you do. So many different misconceptions.
And related to that is, if you took someone's garment as surety or guarantee against a loan, and that's his only coat, for example, you have to give it back to him at night so he has the coat.
Right.
So these are
foreign.
Really elevated, totally foreign. Yeah, okay, wow. So in a similar way, and I'll just say it really quickly, but anybody reading this week's Parsha will see this. A man could sell his daughter into it could look like servitude. This is a bondwoman. Okay, well, what does bondwoman mean in this case? Shifcha is the Hebrew word. Shifcha. This is, again, an attempt to marry up, because he puts her into this family situation to work for this person. And by the way, she had to be prepubescent, which meant that she didn't have signs of puberty yet. She was young, and she goes and she works there. The idea is that ultimately she's going to grow up, and either he's going to marry her, his son is going to marry her, or she's going to go free. Okay, if the two things that don't happen,
it's meant to be a blessing for her, not a curse.
It's meant to. I like to use the term, as one of my rabbinic friends said to me, marrying up.
Yeah,
it's putting her in a situation where she can ascend. And by the way, that's what Jewish life is all about. It's about what's called aliyah. Now, I made aliyah to Israel. I live in Jerusalem, thank God. I'm so happy to be here. But it's the idea of going up, just like we had the phrase going up to Yerushalayim. Okay, there are the songs of ascent, that have to do with that. Shirei HaMa'alot. The last thing I wanted to do with you, I'm going to go back over here real quick because this really appertains to everything that we're talking about. Let me go back to the share screen here. We'll push this button over here. Does that work? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we did this.
That's very brilliant, by the way. I love the way you came up with that. Was really the Moshe Vakalev. That's just that helped me so much.
It helps. No, it makes it's much less baggage to hold on to. Okay, that's why we use associative learning, and I'm very grateful. Thank God for every teacher I had that took me down that path. So almost everybody knows the term mitzvah, like bar mitzvah, or mitzvot, and has to do with, it's typically translated commandments. I don't like that particular translation because the root, the tzadi, the vav, and if this were singular, it would be just a hey, mitzvah with a hey on the end. By the way, not every vav operates as a vowel. And right here, we see it operating first as a consonant and then ot, okay, as a vowel. And that can be confusing when you're looking at it, right? What is that? But if you think of it, that's the root idea of tzadi vav hey has to do with joining, connecting. So the commandments, whether you're a Noahide or whether you're Jewish by either by birth or by choice through conversion, the mitzvot connect you in two ways. What's the first way? Well, first of all, it connects you Bein Adam la Makom. What does that mean? Bein Adam la Makom means between a person and Hashem. There are some mitzvot that are exclusively about your relationship with the Creator. Okay, and then if correspondingly, that's the vertical side of it. On the horizontal side of it, we have mitzvot that are bein adam lechavero. What does that mean? Bein adam lechavero means between persons, between a person and, in this case, it means like his friend. You can see the word chaver in here. So there's mitzvot that are between myself and the Creator, and there are mitzvot that are between us. And a lot of the mitzvot that are in this week's Parsha are in this category. Okay, about how to manage society. I watched a video by Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs some years ago. Alav Shalom, he passed away. Great thinker, and he talked about how much of the Torah is built around the idea of creating a community, creating a society, creating a people. Right, and if you want to find the more heartziga, as I say in Yiddish, the more heartfelt kind of thing, you go to the Psalms. That's where you find so much of the, as the deer pants for the water brooks, so my soul longs after you, etc. Now, the mitzvot break down into two more categories here. Each of these have these. There's positive commandments. We call those mitzvot aseh. That mean basically do this.
Right.
All right. And there's 248 of them. And then there are commandments that say, don't do this. We saw that in the Ten Commandments. There are some that you're supposed to do and some that you're not supposed to do. Okay. And those are called mitzvot lo ta'aseh. You're not going to do those. Okay. Mitzvot aseh, do. Mitzvot lo ta'aseh, don't do. And there are 365 of those corresponding to the days of the solar year. Now, these break down further into three general categories, all right? And these are mentioned a lot in the Psalms. We're into it. There are Mishpatim, which this week's Parsha is named for, and those mean like logical kinds of laws. You would find these in any decent civil society that have to do with things like don't steal, or things that have to do with damage awards for someone broke something, hurt somebody, whatever.
So they're basically obvious, like really obvious. Like
yes, yeah, they're really
common
obvious.
sense type laws.
That's right. Which you can see the logic between why that would be done.
Which is also the category mainly where your Noahide laws fall, and the seven categories would be in that yellow category there.
Well said. So we've seen that there are logical laws. There's another category that's known as chukim, and we could call them, I don't want to call them illogical, but I think non-logical. They don't necessarily make sense to us, but they're said to us to do. Two examples of that would be shatnez, not mixing wool and linen together.
Okay.
And then, of course, the red heifer, which has to do with the ashes of the red heifer, purification against ritual impurity, which we haven't really had for a couple thousand years. By the way, when we study these things, the study of it is, in some cases, as according to our sages, is on the equivalency level of doing it. That's why we read the sacrifices in the morning. We go through the whole temple service, etc. in the morning davening. Also, many people do in the afternoon davening for mincha as well. So these things are not forgotten. But there are things that we're not sure why we do them, but we do them. And then there is another category called edot. Edot. Now, this word edot can also mean like a congregation, but in this case, it has to do with testimonies. And testimonies are things that testify in some way to our relationship with the Creator. And Shabbat is one of those. Shabbat is Beini uvein bnei Yisrael, oti leolam. It's a sign for it is eternal sign. And that's why, by the way, speaking of tefillin, the phylacteries that I put on my arm in the morning and along with the one on my head, we don't use those on Shabbat. Why? Because Shabbat is a testimony unto itself. We don't mix the testimonies. Okay, they're benifrad, they're separated. So tefillin we put on regular days, but we don't on holidays and we don't on Shabbat because those days are testimonies unto themselves. There are other edot as well, but this is just I just wanted to give you this briefly as kind of a paradigm or schematic is maybe a better word of how this all breaks down as far as the commandments are concerned. So when you read through them, you can kind of fix in your mind that mitzvot are applied vertically in my relationship with God, horizontally in my relationship with people. There are things I do and there are things I refrain from doing. And by the way, all these things that you refrain from doing, like I'm not killing anybody right now. So I'm getting the mitzvah of, lo tirtzach, which says don't murder. So that as long as I'm in that mode of not murdering anybody, it's like I'm observing that
Nice.
mitzvah. By refraining from doing something, I'm actually getting the schar or the reward of that mitzvah because it's a don't do. And I'm
Right.
not doing it. So if I'm not eating, refraining from non-kosher food in my case, not everybody's, but mine for sure. That's so this is, and then there are things that you go and you proactively do. All right. So I hope this has been helpful. By the way,
Yeah,
just one
man.
last thing. I wanted to recommend, I picked up a new Chumash recently. I saw it where I daven in the morning.
Oh, nice.
It's from the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And what I liked about it so much was that in the layout, first of all, this is the Hebrew text. This is over here is the Aramaic.
Mhm.
And then here's the Rashi. It's all vowel pointed as well, not written in Rashi script. But then more importantly is if you look very carefully, you'll see bold text. That's the biblical text, bold.
Oh,
But
cool.
what's the non-bolded text? The bolded text is derived from Rashi's commentary and from Midrash and other sources to give you kind of a fuller, more, I don't want a lot of people remember the Amplified Bible,
Yeah.
but I want to say more elucidated experience of what the text is saying without having to necessarily go into the Rashi. So I like it a lot. It gives you a lot of insight. So I recommend that very much. You can order it online on
Nice.
Amazon, or you can go to a Jewish bookstore.
Very good.
But that's it for today. I hope you found this helpful. What's your name again? William. Yes.
I could tell you with certainty this for me was a really huge blessing. This I think this is what I've been longing for a long time. I wish you were around here like I don't know 8-9 years ago when I started this journey alone. Boy, oh boy, it's really very much a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much, my friend.
My honor and my pleasure. And of course, if anybody wants this chart, the PowerPoint that I just did here with the Moshe and Kalev and
Yep.
anything, I have it available in a PDF. You're welcome to write me. You see this on the screen there, gshebrew@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to send it off to you free of charge, obviously. And if anybody's interested in a one-on-one or group Hebrew study at some particular level, especially modern Hebrew, I have a little room in my schedule for that, so you're welcome to get in touch if that's something that you're interested in. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next week, Mitzvah Hashem, for a continuation. Now we're going into some lot of there's a term called. Have you heard the term hapax legomena?
No, sir. I've
Sounds
never-
like speaking in tongues, doesn't it? Hapax legomena.
Oh, let's shoot about a Honda.
Should about a Honda. That's right. But really about a Hyundai.
That's funny.
The
So what is
hapax
that?
legomena is a word that's used one time. Hapax is one, and then legomena means like spoken.
Mhm.
So a hapax legomena is a term in the Hebrew Bible that shows up like one time.
Oh, interesting.
And we're going to run into a number of those
Okay.
in the coming days because we're dealing with things like in the Mishkan, the temple in the wilderness, etc. But that's okay. We're really just looking to extract, and we'll find things in the biblical text that we can build on. So this is a long-term journey. I've been studying Hebrew for over 40 years. I like to say sometimes, well, I started when I was 20. That was 5 years ago. Look what it did to me.
Right.
So
So every show moving forward, with the basic concept is going to be the same. The first 50 minutes, if we go an hour, the first majority is going to be strictly running Hebrew, breaking down vowels. Lots of interruptions by me, asking lots of questions and really interacting heavily. And then the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to dedicate to the weekly Parsha. So if you guys really enjoy this, don't worry. Next week there won't be, like I said, there won't be an introduction because we just did that on this one. So next week we'll just jump right into it, and it'll be full of just a really amazing content. So, Gavriel, my friend, you really are an amazing teacher, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure and my honor. Thank you, William, for providing this platform for all of us around the world. I run into people that say, I found TaNaCh Talk and I came out of the church, or I found TaNaCh Talk and I discovered this or that. I learned this. It's amazing. Right here in Jerusalem, I run into people
Wow.
that have found this resource. And so I would like to say to everybody watching, if you don't mind, buy William a cup of coffee, as it were. I mean, just that's like the price of a cup of coffee, wherever it is where you are. If you just go through Patreon or whatever that's there, and he didn't ask me to do this, but I know that the technology that supports our connectivity here is not free. And it shouldn't have to
Right.
come out of his pocket. We should all be able to contribute. I'm contributing my time and my resources, my knowledge base. I'm happy to do that for you. But I think all of us, we just, $3, $4, $5, whatever, just to help. So if 1,000 people do that, or 2,000 people do that, it can help cover the stream costs and equipment and upgrades and things like that, and keeping it possible for William to sleep at night. So that's really important.
Definitely. Thank you, brother. That was very kind of you. Y'all have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week, Hashem willing. Take care, everybody. Peace.
Shalom, my dear friends. Hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going, and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNachTalk.com, TaNachTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה